All right, I'm going to start recording.
Mm-hmm.
And we will open up the webinar. You probably have do you have the countdown at the top? You probably do.
Oh yeah,
Scheduled
1 minute, 30
start.
seconds.
1 minute,
I love this.
26 seconds.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, I'm going to try to go live now.
Okay.
So that I can get this out of the way. Oh, yay. Is it going to cooperate today? That would be so awesome. Ooh, Jackie, it's going to happen.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, remind me what the title is again. Pivot and shift your career focus famously.
There you go.
Career focus famously. Happening now. Hello, if we have people in the room. I'm just doing the go live here before I forget, and I'm kind of a spaz. Oh, wait. Okay, it's starting in
23.
We're live on Facebook, and it happened, and it cooperated. I feel like it's a magical day.
It is a magical day. That's right.
It's so magical. This is great. Off to a great start. Going live. I love these countdowns.
That's awesome.
5,
I love this.
4, 3, 2. It's like the Janet Jackson countdown. 1.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I hope there are some people hanging out in the room. If you do me a solid, please head over to the chat and let me know that you can see us and hear us, hopefully both. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us today. Whoever's here, because I can't see you yet, so just let me know. The chat is on the right-hand side. And today we have Coach Jackie Ross. I'm very excited about this presentation. Jackie is a certified career development coach. And I know Jackie because she was in a networking group with me, and she was actually the president of said group at the time. And you know, some of you who know me, I'm a little bit of a spaz when it comes to presenting and putting myself out in front of people. And Jackie is such a fantastic, compelling, engaging speaker. And I felt like I had so much to learn from her. And she really puts her whole heart and soul into her work. She specializes in helping intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs. She's all about building confidence for these professionals, many of whom are maybe on the call today. Her career spans over 25 plus years in the behavioral health arena. She's done a lot of human resource work as well, senior leadership, and has been building her own private coaching and speaking business in conjunction with all of that other stuff. She's here today to speak with us about how to pivot and shift your career focus famously. She's also written a book, and we will give you guys some more information about that after the presentation. And that book is called Manage Up, Managing Your Manager. Right, Jackie? Did I get that title right?
Yeah, it's Manage Up, the ultimate guide to managing your manager. Yes.
The ultimate guide.
The ultimate guide.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Jackie, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for hopping on and for running this session and for taking the time out of your day to talk to this group of folks. You know, we're all kind of floundering in the age of COVID-19. I know you're not speaking about, we're all kind of tired of hearing about the new normal and all of that business, but I think that this is a really nice setting of the stage for folks who are considering maybe a new chapter in their life or moving in a new direction. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to mute myself and make myself disappear. If you want to go ahead and open up those slides.
I will.
And you can kick this thing off.
Awesome.
Oh, and I should also mention, everybody, sorry, I said I was going to go away and I haven't done that yet. There will be some Q&A as well, or some opportunities for Q&A, a little bit of participation here. So if you guys have any questions or comments, and you would like me to float to Jackie, please go ahead and stick that in the chat. You can do that either in Facebook Live or within this webinar space. And I will keep my eyes peeled and I will help facilitate that conversation. So take it away, Jackie. It's all you.
Great. Thank you, Tara. And I would have to correct you. I do think you're an exceptional presenter and speaker. And I've heard
You are so
many times.
nice.
No, it's true. I would only say something that's true. So thank you, everyone, for joining this morning. As Tara mentioned, part of what I do is I'm a career development coach. And really, what I've been doing has been working with individuals, either entrepreneurs, so people within organizations and leadership roles, or entrepreneurs, business owners, who are in this career transition. Folks who are either, enjoy what they do, but don't feel like it's a good fit and are looking for a different organizational fit, or don't like what they do and trying to figure out what's next, or they are business owners who are trying to figure out how to either start up, reinvent, reinvigorate their businesses. And today, COVID, as we know, has thrust and forced us into really thinking about this a lot more deeply and strongly. And I heard a statistic last night: 1 out of every 4 Americans are out of work. And so that's a huge number of our workforce population. But that number is actually much larger if you think about it, because it's tossed many more of us, even those of us who are still working or do still own businesses, into this career flux. So we're really needing to pay attention to this area. So how do we do this within our current state? So my goal this morning is really to offer you some strategies and some suggestions around really how to navigate this process and to really manage some of the emotional ups and downs that we are experiencing. So what I'd like you to do is, I would love if you have anything in particular that you have a burning question about, an issue or concern, please put it in the chat. I'll certainly make sure to attend to it where there might be a natural fit, or certainly address that after. But before we actually begin, I do want to read a poem. And the poem is entitled, "Within the Body You Are Wearing." And the poem is by Robert K. Hall. Within the body you are wearing now, inside the bones and beating in the heart, lives the one you have been searching for so long. But you must stop moving and shake hands. The meeting doesn't happen without your presence, your participation. The same one waiting for you, there is moving in the trees, glistening on the water, growing in the grasses, and lurking in the shadows you create. You have nowhere to go. The marriage happened long ago. Behold your mate. Just a way to kick things off. So I want you to think back on times, or a time where you felt like you were on top of your game. There was a flow. Things were happening exactly as they should have, and you were feeling, your mojo. If you could, in the chat, kind of write a word or a phrase that describes that time. And I'd love to see and hear some of the responses. So a time when, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm gonna monitor the chat. So again, what Jackie is asking for is a time when you felt like you're at the top of your game, and what's the one word that would describe that for you? Is that right, Jackie? Did I paraphrase?
That's it, perfect. Or a phrase, a word or a phrase that describes that time when you felt you were on top of your game. Things were flowing as they should have. As Mike Myers would say, you had your mojo.
So Janice says focused, supported, and loved.
Nice.
Chris says productive. I would say in control, which maybe speaks to my control freakiness just a teensy bit. Anyone else have anything to chime in and contribute? I would even say bright. Bob says mesmerizing and engaging.
Nice. Nice.
Very nice.
Excellent. Thank you. So this morning, what I want to do is really offer you 5 tips to get you back in your game, at the top of your game, and really help you pivot and shift, whether it's your next career focus, whether it's you got laid off from your job, whether you're an entrepreneur who needs to kind of shift your business, or you're just ready to make some professional changes. So the areas I'm going to cover first are know yourself. It really starts with that. Then we're going to look at shifting your mindset, kind of gaining a perspective and creating a new story. Then we're going to look at job crafting, a concept of what's called job crafting. And you can also connect that into your business. Then looking at building and engaging your network. And then small steps which create big changes and huge results. So those are the 5 areas that we're going to focus on. So let's start with knowing yourself. Well, I'm sure all of us are at different stages or kind of areas on a continuum in terms of knowing ourselves. And when I'm saying know yourself, I'm not referring to whether you like summer or winter better, whether you'd rather go out for Italian or Chinese, or you'd rather take a vacation in some tropical paradise or hike Mount Kilimanjaro. All those things are really cool and important to know about ourselves. But what I'm speaking about is really knowing who you are as a professional, knowing what you've, bring to the table, and the exploratory work and the self-inventory that you need to do to really understand and create your professional brand. So I guess I'm just asking you to think about some of these areas. So there is a value, whether you have done some work or not, but there's a value of really digging in and really doing some self-exploration and self-inventory. I come across coaching clients all the time that really stumble when I ask them, what is it about you that sets you apart? And oftentimes people are like, deers in headlights. They really don't know how to respond. And they have a hard time articulating what is it that they bring to the table? What are their unique talents and gifts? What is their calling? What are the things that energize them and kind of like brings them to life? So there are different assessment tools out there. And not that I'm this huge fan of doing assessments for the sake of feeling like it's going to tell you everything about who you are as a person. But there are some merits to these assessments. And what they really help to do is to really give you a language, help you be able to craft and articulate what you do bring to the table. So as you're thinking about pivoting and shifting your focus, you really have to know about, who you are and what it is that you have to contribute. So there are some assessment tools I would really recommend. There are ones that are really focused on your career, as well as entrepreneurial focused assessments. The top 3 that I really like and prefer, and there's a lot of others out there, but one is the Strengths Finder. Gallup has done that one, and that's really a career-focused assessment tool. They also have what they call the BP Profiler 10, and it's an entrepreneurial strength finder. So it really kind of taps into what are your kind of business-like strengths and assets. Another one is called Career Fitters. And so what these tools really tell you is they, require you to go online. They cost usually no more than $15 or $20, and they will then generate a report once you're done. And what I always encourage people to do is to read the reports and highlight what lands and resonates with you, what seems to be describing you the best, and think about where and how does this show up in my work life. So using those tools can be really helpful. They let you know what it is that you bring to the table and how you can provide a language for speaking to those things. So knowing what you do well is critically important. What things come naturally, what energizes and lights you up. What do people come to you for? What are you the go-to person for? So being able to really define those areas become important for thinking about what things might you tap into and use in terms of shifting or refocusing your direction. So certainly if folks have comments or questions, please feel free to share them. It's also really important to know what is not your shtick, right? So there are certain things that we are highly gifted and talented in, but there are certainly areas that are not in our wheelhouse. That's what makes us human. No one is perfect in all those areas. And so why is it valuable to know what's not our shtick? Not because we can ignore them, right? Because there are going to be components of those areas that we may have to fulfill in our jobs or as business owners. But how do we figure out ways to manage those areas that are not necessarily our shtick? And then there are also personality inventories, things that kind of let us know a little bit more about our nature, right? Our temperament. What are the things that we can learn about whether we're more introverted? Do we need to recharge our batteries in a more solitary way versus someone who's more extroverted who needs high stimulation to get re-energized? What's our communication style like? Are we more of a circular communicator? Do we have to go back to Geneva 1962 to tell a story before we actually get to the point? Or are we more of a linear communicator? Are we more direct and frank and we get right to the jugular and to the point? Or, kind of get to, we're far more direct in our communication. What are the things that, how would we describe our temperament? So these are all areas that these assessments would really help us tap into and really learn a little bit more about ourselves. And so it's important that we take the time for exploration and self-discovery because it really allows you to invest in understanding a little bit more about what it is that you bring to the table. It helps you get clear to speak to your strengths, to really define your professional brand, articulate your value proposition, whether it's to organizations within the organization or within your client base. And it helps you lean into really defining what makes you you, what's unique, and helps to understand what differentiates you amongst all the other competitors that are out there. So I would encourage you to look at these tools. I'm happy to send the links to you. You can certainly email me. We'll provide that later. You can do these fairly quickly. And then I would encourage you to engage a partner, get a family member, a friend, a colleague, someone within your networking community to speak out loud about what you've learned and uncovered or to get some validation. So that's really kind of tip and strategy one, is about knowing yourself. So the second area is really about adopting this certainty mindset. And I'm not going to lie. The reality is there's some stark truth in making a pivot and a change. There are no quick fixes and there are no shortcuts. And it often takes a little bit longer than what you originally anticipate. And it's not often a linear process. You might find that you're shifting, you're kind of doing, those, when you go up the mountain, there's switchbacks, right? So you're kind of pivoting and shifting along the way. It's not often this one direct route. It also is a temporary inconvenience. So your current situation is not something that's going to be permanent. It's a temporary inconvenience. And if you adopt this mindset that you have the power to change, right, things can really shift differently. So I'm going to invite you, and I want you to entertain me in this exercise. No one is going to see you unless you have people in the room. But what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to stand up. And I would like you to make sure that you have enough space around you that if you circled your arms around, that you could move. Okay? And I'd like you to close your eyes. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about I want you to think about something that you really want to have happen in your life. It could be something in your personal world. It could be something in your professional world. But I really want you to get that image in your mind about this desired goal, this desired event or situation that you want to have happen. Close your eyes, and I really want you to think about what it is that you want to have happen. I know this sounds a little silly, but just go with me, okay? And I want you to think about this goal, and I want you to hope that this comes to life. And I want you to put yourself in a state of hope, a state of really hoping that this comes to fruition. And I want you to hold your body in a position when you feel hopeful. I want you to breathe the way that you would when you feel hopeful about something happening. I want you to hold your arms in a position when you're hopeful. I want your body to stand in a position when you hope that that desired goal will happen. I hope that it comes true. I hope that it comes to life. I hope that it happens. And I want you to think about and visualize images when you're hoping for something to happen. And I want you to just notice and pay attention to the experience in your body. I want you to pay attention to what's happening. I want you to pay attention to your breathing. I want you to pay attention to the images that are there. And I want you to just hope that it happens. And just notice. And now I want you to shift into a state of uncertainty. Now you don't even know if what you want to have happen is actually going to happen. You're not just worried or a little worried. You're getting a little bit anxious. And I want you to put yourself in the state of uncertainty when you feel like you don't know if what you want to have happen is actually going to happen. And I want you to hold your body in the position of how you would hold it when you're uncertain, when you're worried. I want you to breathe the way that you would when you are uncertain and concerned about whether this is ever going to be possible. And I want you to hold your hands and your arms in a position when you're uncertain and worried. And I just want you to notice what happens to your body. What starts to change? What is your breathing like? And I want you to just notice and pay attention. And now I want you to shift back into hope. I want you to go into that hopeful state. I hope that this is going to happen. I'm hoping that this is going to come to life. And I want you to shift your body and move your body in the position the way that you would when you're hopeful. I want your breathing to simulate how you would breathe when you're hopeful. And I want you to just notice and pay attention to what it is that your body is doing. And notice the differences. And now I want you to put yourself into a state of absolute certainty. I want absolute intensity when you know there's no question in your mind that what you will achieve will happen without failure. Make yourself certain right now. What you expect to have happen will happen. There's no doubt in your mind. And I want you to stand the way that you would when you're absolutely certain. I want you to assume the physiology when you are extremely certain. I want you to know that you're going to achieve what you're focusing on. There's no question in your mind. I want you to breathe the way that you would when you are absolutely certain. I want you to put that look on your face when you're absolutely certain. Maybe there's a gesture. Maybe there's something that you do with your hands when you're absolutely certain. What is it that you do? What's that connection? What's that feeling that you experience in your body? I want you to create it in your body. I want you to create it in your face. And I want you to stand with some excitement about being certain. You expect it and you know that it's going to happen and you're darn excited that it's going to happen. Notice how you're standing. Notice when you feel this way. What are you picturing that's different? And I want you to just notice that difference. And now I want you to go back to uncertainty. Go right back there. You don't know if it's going to happen. I know you don't want to go there, but just go there for a second. What shifts and changes? What difference happens in your body? And now I want you to go back to certainty instantaneously, immediately. Instantaneously get certain. Certainty is a physiology. It's a choice, and it's something that's created in your body right now. You know it's going to happen, and I want you to get that feeling in your body of absolute certainty. I want you to lock it in. I want you to anchor it, and I want you to know what it feels like. I'm going to invite you to open up your eyes, sit back down, and I would love if you could share, what did you notice in your body when you were uncertain versus certain? So I'm going to open that up to folks. And thank you for entertaining me in this exercise. This is a Tony Robbins exercise. I have to give him full credit. I did not create this. This is something that he has shared on his tapes. So what was that exercise like for you?
So Jackie, so guys, put it in the chat if you wouldn't mind, if you're willing to share how you were feeling during that exercise. So I'm in my office, standing and doing the thing. It really was quite striking, Jackie, I have to say. Like for me, the certainty felt, I was standing upright. I had deep breathing. I felt relaxed but confident and strong. And the uncertainty, which I have to say I'm feeling pretty familiar with these days, like a pit in my stomach, the more rapid breathing and the kind of hunched posture and maybe crossing of my arms. Angela says, uncertainty, standing crooked, head down, dejected, totally. Janice says, for me, it's all about my face. And I agree with that. My smile is brighter and wider when I'm in certain mode. My mind is lighter and certain feels better than hopeful. And Mary Sobolski, sorry, I'm just going to say Mary. She says, hi, Jackie.
Hey, Mary.
It was a complete change from tense and short breaths, to open, strong, and deep breaths. And Angela says certainty felt upright, fists in strength position, chest out, and excitement in her legs.
Outstanding. Thank you all for sharing that. And those are often very similar experiences that people have. And oftentimes we don't really realize, especially when we're having those kind of worried, uncertain feelings, our body gets smaller and hunched over, right? We start to become small. And in the opposite of what you described, when you were in certainty, your body was broad, your shoulders were out there, your breathing was affected, your facial expressions were uplifted, it sounded. And how quickly were you able to shift between one state or the other?
I was able to shift pretty quickly, which is shocking. And I did have a smile on my face, and I had a moment where I was like, can Jackie just record this and I can listen to this a couple times a day? Yeah, it was really striking. How did the rest of you guys feel? Stick it in the chat. Was it easy to switch back and forth? Let us know. But yeah, I was struck by how quickly I could move. Yeah, quick switch, says Angela.
And I love how you said listening to this several times a day, because this is something that we can shift at any moment in time. So many of you may have heard of Amy Cuddy. She's a social psychologist with Harvard, and she's done all these a lot of research on body language. And she talks about the power pose. If folks have seen her famous TED Talk, where she holds herself, in this kind of Wonder Woman superhero position for 2 minutes. And what she found was that in her research, that doing that, holding your body in that position, changes the chemicals inside our body. And that what happens is that when we are in this kind of power pose, in this upright certainty position, that our cortisol level, so our stress hormone, decreases, and our testosterone, our power hormone, increases. And the exact opposite happens when we are hunched over and making ourselves small. Our stress hormone rises and our testosterone level decreases. So what I recommend is, not only shifting your mindset, but think about shifting your body. So anytime you need to kind of get into that state of certainty, think about your body posture. Think about how you're holding yourself, standing or sitting. Think about your facial expressions and adjust those and change them. It's not just that makes the difference, but it's a start, right? So adopting a certainty mindset and a body posture will really help in this process.
And we have a couple of singers in the group. So Erica is in here, and she has a background as an opera singer. And she says that having that certainty to produce that sound and to portray certain roles and figure out how to do that, even when you're not personally feeling it, is essential. And Joanne says she agrees, because she sings also, and she can't stand any other way, right? That's the only way that they can present their voice, is by kind of embodying that certainty. Yeah, it's so interesting.
I absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing that. It's powerful. It's really powerful. And it's something that we could do pretty quickly. And it's something that we could do throughout the whole day. Just kind of be mindful of how are we holding ourselves. So that's great. Thank you. The third tip is really looking at job crafting. And this can be whether you're working within an organization or if you're an entrepreneur. So it can translate in either place. And in my book, I actually call it the Jackify approach. And so really what the Jackify approach is, when I thought about early on in my career, how I really was strategic in some ways, even though I don't necessarily know that it was conscious. Early on, I recognized that I was spending an awful lot of time in my workplace, right? We spend 40 plus hours in our work environment, some of us much more extended than that. And I realized that if I was going to take that much of my life and be in a place, I wanted to enjoy it and really like what it was that I was doing. So I figured out that I could do my job, and what was really important to me was that I fulfilled my job responsibilities to the best that I could, the essential functions, outlined in my job descriptions. But I also found ways to inject and include things and activities that I really enjoyed as well, things that I took my own initiative on, and not for the purposes of just because it was self-serving for me, even though it did serve a value to me. But I thought about things that had a value and benefit to the clients I was serving, to my team, to my larger organization. And there's actually a term for this. It's called job crafting. And these two professors, and I hope I don't butcher her name. One of the women's name is Amy Wierzinski and Jane Dutton. In 2001, they coined this concept and they called it job crafting. And job crafting is really on the individual's initiative. It's being proactive in really inserting either tasks or crafting your relationships or cognitively crafting within the framework of your role, whether, again, it's in an organization or as an entrepreneur. So if you look at task crafting, it's really changing up some responsibilities, injecting things that are important to you. So if you kind of go back to what we talked about initially about knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your interests, knowing your passions, this is where this really ties in. How can you personalize and make what you're doing a little bit more like what I call Jackified? You know, how do I put Jackie into the things that I'm doing? So that's one way to job craft, is by certain tasks and responsibilities. Another way is by the relationships that you're building. So reshaping the type and the nature of your interactions. So for example, if you're within an organization, how do you manage up? How do you manage all the stakeholders within your organization? And how can you redefine and relook at some of the relationships that you have? And then looking at cognitive crafting, which is just what we talked about earlier about changing your mindset. How can I start thinking about some of the things that I'm doing and really understand, even if I feel like they may be mundane tasks or things that I don't particularly get jazzed up and excited about, how can I think about what the value is to our stakeholders, our clients, our organization, to the community at large? So I encourage you to think about how can you incorporate and inject either tasks, develop your relationships differently, or think about how you can shift your mindset about what it is that you're doing and really start to create and own your role and position, or how you define yourself as a business owner. Like really get into the driver's seat, because that's what I think job crafting is really about. It's really about sitting in the driver's seat of your career. So if you have any thoughts and questions about that and like how we do this in COVID, what are the ways in which we can shift our tasks, our relationships, our mindsets right now? So feel free to kind of add those.
If anyone has any questions, please stick it in the chat. I am taking notes like a crazy person here, Jackie. And
Okay.
I am. And I think what's been interesting so far, that there's a number of things, but what resonates with me, and I've done a little bit of digging myself with reading and paying attention to various other leaders and whatnot, that concept of taking control and also claiming your time, because if you don't claim your time, other people will, right? So building definition around that, making sure that there are boundaries in place and that you're following your best definition as opposed to a definition that someone else is imposing on you, which I think is interesting.
I love that. And the reality is that many of us were working within parameters. So there's some things that we may or may not be able to do, or may or may not be able to get permission, or there's not an alignment, right? So there may be some things that you personally enjoy that may not connect or fit in. But finding those opportunities to do that and really like enliven your work experience. As I said earlier, you spend a lot of your time in our workplaces, wherever that is currently. And so finding ways to make it personal, make it enriching, make it fulfilling, really is up to you. Organizations, even though workplace engagement is kind of the hot topic today, and how do we retain employees, are essential areas that organizations are looking at. We have a personal responsibility to make it our own. So I love that.
And Bob O'Neill is here, and he says, he suggests, I think this is great. He says, ask for feedback from those who know you well, and they may share some hidden strengths that you might not have seen in yourself, right? He says that this helped him so much in his career to get that outside perspective.
Bob, I absolutely love that. And I heard of, there's people who have done focus groups and they've invited people that they admire and respect, friends, colleagues, etc. And the focus groups have been about you as the person who you're inviting, others to come in. And the purpose is to really get feedback from them about, if they didn't know you, for example, or if they didn't know what you did, what would they think you should be doing? Right. And, asking the question is so critically important, because you get information that you might not have otherwise had you not posed the question. So I love that you solicited that feedback from folks.
And that's very brave too, to solicit that info, right? You're making yourself vulnerable in a pretty incredible way, right? That's a big step.
Yes. Yeah. Love that. Perfect feedback. So I'm going to move to the fourth strategy. And I don't think you can go anywhere on social media or read any article today that doesn't talk about and emphasize the importance of building and engaging your network. We should be doing this all the time. Networking is not really for the purposes of when you need to network or when you think it's the time to do it. It should be something that we're doing continuously. And networking is really about building and creating relationships. That's really what networking is. And so many times when I put out the word networking, or we talk about the notion of networking, people just dread hearing it. And they dread it because some folks that I've encountered are identified introverts, right? And they shiver at the thought of networking, or they don't exactly know how to do it. They're kind of stuck and uncertain about how do you actually approach networking and how do you do this thing. And lastly, a lot of folks think that to be an exceptional networker is that you have to really be outgoing and incredibly interesting. And I want to debunk all of those notions because, first of all, as I mentioned, networking is really about building and creating relationships. And who better than really builds strong relationships? You guessed it, are introverts. And why do introverts make exceptional networkers? Because they are really good listeners. And in order to be a good networker, it's not about being interesting, it's about being interested. And when you're interested in people, you're paying attention to what it is that they're sharing with you. You're listening for their pain points. You're listening for the things that are important to them. And you're building those connections. So listening skills are critical. So engaging and assembling your networking communities, obviously today in COVID, we're doing that far more on social media, but being present on social media is really important. And networking is valuable because it allows you to make those connections. That's what it does. And I read something once, and it says that it takes 6 conversations with someone before they know who you are and have some idea about your competence and your character. So it's not just that initial, line that you toss out to people. So often I hear from clients, well, I sent so-and-so an email. I did reach out to them. I sent them a message. This says it takes 6 conversations for people to really feel like they have a sense of who you are and have some trust and confidence in being able to reach out and help you, or feel as if you're feel that you're credible. So building your connections are key. It allows you to not only do that, but it allows you to increase and expand your opportunities. We know that people land, 85% of job seekers get their next job through a networking connection. And we know that business owners typically get their next client through networking connections. So networking is key. We also know that it allows you to share knowledge. So it allows you to identify yourself as an expert in a particular field. It allows you to create your personal brand. And when you're networking, thinking about knowing who you are, being able to craft your professional and career narrative and be able to articulate and speak that to others is the way in which you can start to share that with your networking communities. So all of those are building blocks to be able to speak to people more confidently, to be able to articulate who you are and what sets you apart. And when you're networking, it allows you to be at the table. It increases your visibility and it creates your presence. No one is going to know that you're there unless you make yourself present and known. So I know that COVID has allowed us far more opportunity to use social media and really think about what are the sites that would be important to you, whether you're a professional, whether you're a business owner, where should you be engaging? So certainly feel free to add any additional comments, any suggestions, any things that have been useful for you. And the last strategy I want to talk about is really this concept of thinking about pivoting, right? So when you pivot, it's when you turn or you rotate. It's kind of like that hinge, right? And if you're playing basketball, it's when you're, pivoting back and forth on one foot to protect the ball. Or if you play golf, and I'm not a golfer, but if you do play golf, you know that slightest adjustment in your swing can mean the difference between slicing and shanking the ball and driving it perfectly down the green. So it's the same in your career or in your business, that the smallest changes can lead to the biggest results. A lot of times our brain tells us that nothing is working, and it feels like you're a million miles away from where it is that you want to go. But the truth is you can really be just 2 millimeters away. It can just be that little shift, that little adjustment. And sometimes that's how breakthroughs happen, right? We make these small changes, and over time, we've gotten to the next level and we've broken through. That could be in our personal lives, in our professional lives. And it's those tiny habits that add up over time, right? A week from now, a month from now, a year from now, it can make the profound difference. So don't minimize the impact on the small changes and shifts that you do each and every day. So those are really the 5 areas in terms of looking at knowing yourself. I'm going to bring back actually that first slide, if you don't mind. I apologize, I'm sifting through. But knowing yourself, shifting your mindset, kind of really taking the driver's seat and crafting your career or business, building and engaging your network, And the small steps that you take each and every day will lead to huge changes and big results. So I would love to open it up if people have thoughts or questions. I don't know if you can even open it up aside from the chat, but Tara, I'm going to leave that to you.
So Jackie, I feel like a bobblehead in my office. I was just like the whole time, just nodding as if you could see me nodding. Also, Chris Miller says that that's one sexy PowerPoint and that
I
she's
love
jealous.
that. Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, I think that there's so many. I mean, I don't know if you'd be willing to share your slide deck with the crew.
Absolutely.
Angela says thank you. She got a lot of value out of this. And Janice says the value and content is so worthwhile. I would like to know the name of Jackie's book and where to get it. Anyone else have books to recommend? Yes, I will stick that in the chat. I'm going to put it in the Alchemy Facebook group, all that good stuff. So there's so many books that came to mind during this talk, and I just wanted to comment quickly on the introverts and the listening aspect of the things you were saying. And I've been working on a talk myself, little plug, I'm doing it next Saturday, but thinking about how to engage people. And it's interesting how using certain active listening techniques can make you more or appear, I mean, of course you're interested, but appear to be more interested as opposed to interesting, because it's not all about you. You need to be able to reflect back those connections that you're making with other people. And, you know, and with those small changes that you mentioned, Jackie, really showing up every day, showing up and putting one foot in front of the other, and keeping your eyes on the prize at all times. I think there's a lot of folks that say, list your goals and put them on a Post-it where you can see it every single day. So like it's making those neural pathways, right? Like making sure that they're connected and that you're consciously aware, because I think it's hard for us to see the bigger picture sometimes because we're so wrapped up in the day-to-day. So Janice, Jackie's book is, Jackie, please, sorry, I lost my notes. Manage Up is what it's called.
The Ultimate Guide to Managing Your Manager. And if you go to my website, which is, and if you could type it in, it's CoachJackieRoss.com. So all one word, CoachJackieRoss.com. And on the top right, there's actually a link that will take you right to Amazon. The book is there. You can order it from Amazon straight. And
there you go. I put it in the chat.
And I did see Bob O'Neill's recommendation of Atomic Habits. I read that. It's excellent. And so I really concur with that one. And
Jackie, have you read Essentialism by chance? The Disciplined Pursuit of Less?
No.
This is one book that I read and then I immediately started rereading. It's really wonderful. It's all about simplifying. It's about figuring out, again, it's about boundaries and kind of getting back to basics and kind of learning to say no, to open yourself up to more valuable opportunities. Chris says, as a writer, my process is to step back after the initial data dump and get perspective before diving into the weeds of the text. And so, right, that sounds like a nice big overview that you can kind of mock up for yourself and then get into the details of establishing those goals. I also need to, so I'm going to get all of your stuff together here, Jackie, and stick it in the group. Does anyone else have follow-up questions or comments? Oh, thank you, Janice. That's very kind.
Very true.
Natural influence. Thank you. That really does mean a lot to me. Thank you. I'm not always good at accepting compliments. I really appreciate that. there's a few other, so one other thing I wanted to say, Jackie, before I let you go.
Yes.
I was thinking a lot about, in my circle, there's a lot of talk around your sweet spot, right? And being able to identify the things that you're really good at, not only the things you're really good at, but the things you enjoy, and like finding the overlap between those two.
Yes.
Just because it's something you kick serious ass at doesn't mean that's what you should be doing, right? Like if it doesn't give you joy, if it's not fulfilling you in any real way. So kind of making those two lists and then seeing where the overlap is with those components is also, there's a bookmark this, guys, and rewatch it. We're going to have the recording available. This is really fantastic, Jackie.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Really, really wonderful. Yep. And Erica says this has been very helpful and nutritious. Thank you, you two amazing women. Thank you, Erica, for coming. I wish you were here. I wish you were local to us, Jackie. I would introduce you to so many people. But you know what? In the age of COVID, we can all meet. So I will also be sharing her contact info as well. Again, Jackie's brilliant. She's wonderful and tremendously helpful to so many people.
And feel free, folks are welcome to reach out. You can certainly email me. It's Jackie, Jackie, at coachjackieross.com. If you have any thoughts or follow-up questions, sometimes it takes a period to digest and questions come later. So that's typically how I operate. I'm not necessarily a shoot from the hip communicator or processor. So if there are things that come up afterwards, I'm happy to talk about. So, and thank you for all these wonderful comments, and thank everyone for their time. This was fun.
So valuable. This is so great. And you're right about processing of information. I mean, this is like when you see a really good movie, it's good when you're left thinking about some things. And I have a feeling that this is going to resonate with people, and it's going to lead to more exploration around these thoughts and techniques. So
awesome.
Thank you again so much for your time, Jackie.
Thank you.
It's such a privilege to have you here. I feel very honored. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, what do days even mean anymore, right? What's today? Friday? Doesn't matter. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's wacky.
It is. Stay safe and healthy. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Stay tuned for more good stuff. Chris says, LOL, true story. It's true. Take good care, Jackie. I will talk to you.
Thanks, Mary.
All right. Bye, everybody.